I don't know if you've been on the internet for the last 14 years. If you haven't, welcome. I'm glad you started here. If you have, you might know that The Winds of Winter has taken a while. And obviously, it is going to take a while. It's a very complex book, but I think this is a bit longer than anyone thought. There are a number of issues, including all of these various characters and plot lines colliding in so many different ways to the point where the past two books in the series were split entirely by character, and now all of those characters are reconvening into one singular book that is supposed to pick up all of their stories. But there are a number of other smaller tertiary issues to the way that George R. R. Martin wants to move the story forward. And today I want to talk about a very small one of those issues, that being the issue of the extra material in each of these books. Specifically, while I was writing a different video, I realized just how extensive the appendices in each of these novels are. These are these kind of indexes of characters and who they're sworn to in the back of every Ice and Fire book that grow and shrink as the series continue, but overall could be a concern to the Winds of Winter. This concern initially caught my eye when I was looking at A Feast for Crows and its appendix. It's 71 pages long, which I just thought was remarkable. Feast is also the second shortest book in the entire series, and yet it has such a comprehensive group of characters that it takes that many pages to catalog all of them. Additionally, there are parts of the A Feast for Crows prologue that do not appear again in A Dance with Dragons, such as that of Old Town and House Hightower, because that part of the story does not show up in A Dance with Dragons at all. Additionally, the same is true of A Dance with Dragons. While there are fewer areas that are outright excluded, as we do have some Feast characters popping back up again, there are areas that are a lot less detailed in Feast that get a lot more fleshed out in A Dance with Dragons, most notably the Wall and Marine, as Jon Snow and Daenerys Targaryen take much bigger roles in Dance than they do in Feast, as neither of them have viewpoint chapters in Feast. Despite being a larger book, A Dance with Dragons appendix is slightly shorter. It's only 57 pages long only. It is a bit smaller, both in font and in spacing, and I do think that goes a long way. A Feast for Crows is kind of luxuriously paced, and that does track with it being a smaller book and really not having as much worry when it comes to having to fit so much material in so many pages. But that is very much an issue with The Winds of Winter. For those of you who aren't as familiar with publishing, the typical printing press can only print about 1,500 manuscript pages into one published volume. That was around the length of A Storm of Swords and A Dance with Dragons. I believe A Storm of Swords was about 10 manuscript pages longer, but regardless, these two books were at the absolute outer edge of how long a novel can be while still being printed in a single volume. The Winds of Winter is set to be even bigger. When Martin started writing The Winds of Winter, he'd always talked about it as being a similar length to A Storm of Swords and A Dance with Dragons. But in the interview circuit back in 2022, when Martin was doing a big information spree about this book, we then learned that he was going to make this book considerably longer than A Storm of Swords and A Dance with Dragons. He keeps mentioning 300 manuscript pages longer at 1,800 manuscript pages total, and it is worth noting that Martin's manuscript pages do not include the appendices and the maps. He has blog posts from around the time of the publication of A Dance with Dragons that do say that those things have to be added afterwards when the book is completely finalized, finished, and done, which makes sense because you don't want to have characters in the appendix who either do or don't appear that shouldn't be there or should be there. I phrased that pretty confusingly, but you get what I mean, I'm sure. Before I get deeper into my thoughts, do you have any thoughts of your own? Are there any ways you would solve this problem? I had the thought of like maybe publishing the appendix as like a slip book in the same cover or jacket as The Winds of Winter or something like that, but overall it is a very interesting issue to evaluate. And I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. While down there, leave a like, subscribe, it does really help the channel. It's an important concern that I think we all need to bear in mind when evaluating expectations for The Winds of Winter. Whatever number of manuscript pages we think this book might have at its point of completion, we need to knock off about 100 from that, given the fact that we do have maps in the appendix. The maps and everything in the front, including acknowledgments and all the legal stuff, take up usually about 20 pages. And then I would guess the appendix of The Winds of Winter will probably be around 80, because we are seeing storylines combined, and you might think, while, oh, Martin is going to go kill off 1 billion characters in the Winds of Winter, and that'll really cull the herd and allow us to have a shorter appendix. No, not necessarily. The appendix reflects the beginning of the book rather than the end of it. So all of this world building and adding of characters and fleshing out of the setting that Martin does throughout A Feast for Crows and A Dance with Dragons only goes to expand the appendix of the Winds of Winter, therefore further limiting the number of pages that he has to work with. And these pages are further limited by the material itself. A character being in the appendix means that they are in Martin's head, and characters in Martin's head tend to kind of garden a fair bit. They grow beyond what is expected of them, and we see that throughout A Feast for Crows and A Dance with Dragons, with many new characters coming to the forefront. And Martin has said the same will be true in Winds. While he has confirmed there won't be any more viewpoint characters, which will probably help the story from not expanding a ton, he has confirmed that we will meet many new, I almost said NPCs, but that is kind of how I think of them, as with Martin, he is kind of running 10 different Dungeons & Dragons campaigns at the same time. While the continuous expansion of this series does yield problems and is ultimately a large reason for the delay of the next book in said series, I ultimately do find it to be a good thing. Without these kind of structures of growth and organic gardening of plots and characters who were maybe just intended to serve a background role or something entirely different than they ended up doing, it's allowed the series to become what it is, and it allowed each individual character to truly grow and become something fascinating. A great example of this is Sir Aerys Oakheart. He's nothing in the first few books. He's a background player. He's a Kingsguard who we encounter a few times, but then we get in his head for one chapter in A Feast for Crows. A lot of people dunk on that chapter and him being a viewpoint in general. While I do agree that he isn't the most necessary viewpoint, I love that single chapter. It does a great job showing Martin's classic human heart in conflict with itself, which is his main thing he likes to write about. He says it's the only thing worth writing about. But additionally, being dropped into this random person's head for a single chapter goes a long way to show how this world really, truly lives and breathes. Each character has their own story, even if we're not privy to it, and it is fascinating to see unfold. Thinking about this issue drives me further into a school of thought that I've had for the better part of a year now, and that is that the way that Martin wants to publish The Winds of Winter cannot be done in a single volume physically. I think that he can do it. I think he still has the determination and is working on it. His recent blog posts have made that clear, but I think that physically this probably cannot be bound into a single book, as if he's right and this is going to end up being 300 manuscript pages longer than A Storm of Swords or Dance with Dragons, it's just not going to fit into a single volume. So at that point, is it 2 books published at the same time with maybe a slip volume that is also the appendix? Is it 2 books published a year apart in order to allow for the latter half to be edited and finalized? I'm not sure. There are many different approaches that one could take to this, but I do think that the healthiest way that this is going to get done is as 2 different books. Whether that's 2 publications or 1 publication is unclear and could be good either way. Despite all of this worry warding on my part, I have to say that I love the appendices in A Song of Ice and Fire. It's a big reason as to why I love this series. You can tell that Martin is thinking about so many of these characters. Even if they're not main players, even if they're not driving the main story forward, they are people who each individually have lives in an interconnected world where each event affects other events in this domino effect of trickle-down consequences that span the entire series. People always say that Martin likes to kill off characters for shock value and things like that. That's not the case at all. Martin is big on cause and effect. Everything ripples in the world of Ice and Fire, and I absolutely love that and wouldn't change it for the world. And the appendix is a great way to keep track of it. Thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. I really appreciate it, and it really helps grow the channel. Let me know who your favorite appendix character is. I think mine is Aegon Bloodborne Frey, for having the coolest nickname ever, but never appearing on page. I'd love to hear your opinions in the comments. While you're down there, leave a like, subscribe. I really appreciate it, and I'll have many more videos on House of the Dragon, Game of Thrones, A Song of Ice and Fire, and Dunk and Egg for you in the very near future. Thank you again for watching. Goodbye, everyone.